Hey there, welcome back to 16 Stops a Podcast. My name is Josh, and I'm here with Brandon.
What's up?
Today in episode 18, we're going to talk about if it's time to switch to Sony.
Dun dun dun!
All right, well, Brandon, this is kind of a conversation that's been ongoing for probably the whole year between the two of us and probably a lot of other people.
Lots of back and forth between the timing.
Yeah, so we're going to get into that, and specifically about your case, and we're going to use that as a jump-off point for a discussion to talk about switching to Sony. So, all right, so like usual, personal news. I guess I'll start, Brandon. I've just been trying to crank out a lot of YouTube videos while I've had time. I've just been making a lot of videos about the new Blackmagic 6K full frame. I made a bunch of comparison videos, so if anyone's curious about, everyone watching this is curious about like how it compares with like any other camera you'd want to see, I probably made that video, so.
What camera, I know you had to send it back. Was there a camera you're like, damn, I wish I would have compared it against that camera?
Not really, because I compared it against the 6K G2, which is the same sensor as the 6K Pro and the original 6K. I compared it against the R5C and against the FX3. So, not really. I think the only one that would remotely be a one to think about would be like the Sigma FP, but I don't think a lot of people are considering that camera anymore. So that was not like something I was going to go out of my way and spend that much time on. But I think putting up against the FX3, the R5C, and of course the other Blackmagics, I think was really cool. So
yeah, they were good. They were good videos.
Thanks, man. Those take so much time to put together, but hopefully they're helpful for people. Anyways, Brandon, what have you been up to? You've been so busy. I know we've been forever just trying to get this podcast recorded.
Yeah, I've really tried to step up my YouTube game and deliver more videos per week. I've been trying to do 2 a week, and as you know, that's just hard. Like, you can burn out pretty fast from that, but still motivated. But on top of that, I've been doing client work. I got like 2, retainer clients, and I'm making 2 videos a month for one and anywhere between 3 and 4 for the other. And so between like the 8 videos I'm doing a month for my own channel, maybe 1 for the camera channel, a podcast, and then all the other stuff, it's been a lot.
Yeah, man. Well,
it's been a lot.
I'm proud of you for getting all that done. And there were sometimes you're like, I have so many things I have to do, and you just like seem to just put your head down. I haven't seen your output been like that in a long time. So
just grind, man.
Yeah,
grind.
That's awesome, man.
Thanks.
Yeah. So let's get on to everyone's favorite topic. What did we buy?
What did we buy?
So I feel like we've had a couple of slow episodes with purchases. I made way too many purchases in the last few weeks. So
same here. I went ham, bro.
Well, I don't think I know all the things that you bought. So, and I don't know if you know all the things that I bought. So this might be a little bit interesting.
I didn't.
So first of all, any crazy, like, before we get into what we purchased, did you see any like, first of all, Black Friday and Cyber Monday, what is going on? I don't even understand. It used to be like Black Friday is the day after Thanksgiving. Cyber Monday was, now it's just like Black Friday month. Season?
2023.
I don't understand. Like, do you wait for deals on Black Friday? Do you not? Like, is it all week? Is it all month? I don't get it anymore.
It's funny. I just posted my, like, what did I buy for Black Friday? And I think like 10 years ago, Black Friday used to be like, it used to come with its own riot, which was a lot of fun. You just watch people in Walmart getting decked over, like a 60-inch TV that they're trying to get for like $80. But now that Black Friday and Cyber Monday are like 2 weeks, all of that fun and chaos is gone. Which I know is like probably a good thing, but I kind of miss it. I kind of miss like everybody storming.
Camping out, like setting up tents outside of Walmart the day before.
Yeah.
And like,
I don't know if you saw this, but like a bunch of people have been seeing like Black Friday deals are the exact same deal as it was like the week before.
Right, they just jack up the price and then they lower it.
Yeah. Freaking lame.
Anyways, so I guess I'll get into what I bought because it was quite a few things. Let me preface this before I start talking about all these things that I bought, in that I sold a lot of stuff and I have a few more things to sell, but also it's sort of the end of the year and I like to make purchases to try to balance out tax deductions and stuff like that, because I did sell a bunch of stuff. So some of the stuff I was just like, what can I buy? So one thing I've had my eye on for a long time is the Apple Studio display, and I finally bought one. So
Nice.
I'm rocking that now. I'm using a 2-monitor setup. So like our buddy Matthew, I'm not going like 4.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're like a sixth of the way to Matthew's editing bay.
Matthew's been very helpful holding my hand to giving me recommendations. I don't even know how to use 2 monitors. I was like, what do you put on each monitor? So trying to embrace that workflow for a little bit. It's been really nice though. I did have a decent monitor before, but I kind of just wanted an Apple monitor. Since I bought my Mac Studio, I've wanted that.
Yeah.
I also bought a Small HD Cine 5. So
right on.
it was like $400 off a couple weeks ago. And so
Dang.
I have a 702 Touch, which I love that monitor. And I've been using Atomos monitors for a long time. I wanted a really nice 5-inch. So I'm going to sell some of my Atomos products. I already sold some and because I had too many of them. And so I now have like one really good 5-inch, one really good 7-inch. I'm really pumped about that.
You're probably not mad about selling the Atomos stuff.
No, definitely not.
Sweet.
Yeah. So
is that it, or is there more?
There's more. I picked up an RF50, which we were talking about. I got a really good deal on one. So
you did? Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
So the 51.2. 50 is like my favorite prime lens. So
yeah, I'm selling mine. So.
Yeah, you're selling yours. And anyways, I got it. I'm gonna play with it. I want to get some test footage and use it for video and see. I know it's got issues with autofocus, noise, and reliability and stuff, but I know the image quality is great, so I want to give that a go. I had it a long time ago, but I didn't keep it very long, so I know that it looks awesome. So anyways, that's what I bought. I also bought my wife a camera for Christmas. So
you did? That's cool.
Yes. She's always taking a lot of photos on her phone, so she's not a photographer, but I was like, we were out one day on a hike and she's like, I should probably get a camera. I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's get into this. So anyways, bought her a camera. So that was yeah, it was a big purchase.
Can you not say? Is she like upstairs?
I don't think she's gonna watch this.
You?
I don't think she's gonna watch this, so it's fine. I bought her an R8, which was crazy on sale. The R8 was on sale for $1,200 new, and for a full frame photo camera, it's pretty sweet. And I got her an RF35, which I got refurbished from Canon. So a couple good deals.
That's a sick little combo.
I think so too. I think she'll have a lot of fun with it, and we can share lenses and stuff because I have RF glass too, so should be fun. I can't wait to see what she shoots with it. Anyways,
very nice.
So Brandon, let's hear about all your purchases because I just dropped like way too much money.
Yeah. I spent a grip, and I will preface that a lot of what I spent isn't a done deal. This is a lot of what I spent was like an experimentation in what I want to do next year. Some solutions. So the big one, and the one we'll be talking about mostly today, is I picked up a Sony.
Brandon, it's funny to see you holding a Sony, by the way.
I know. I had an FX3. I think at the start of the year, I took it to Yosemite, and I really enjoyed it. But I didn't have it that long. I didn't really test it. And this is the FX30, and we'll get into why. But anyway, I bought this, and I bought 2 primes for it, both Sigmas. I got the 16.
Ooh, I love that lens.
Great lens. Already, I'm just like, dude, so small, so light. And then I got the 30 1.4 from Sigma.
Cool.
So I got that. Josh, I know you're gonna hate me, and I know this is probably gonna be the end.
Oh,
of
I know
this
what
podcast.
this is. I know what this is.
I bought the Rode Streamer X.
Can we just? We have to cut this part out, Brandon.
I know. It's just gonna be the television.
So how is it, by the way? I know we were talking before. We're trying to help you troubleshoot some stuff, but how's it been?
So initially, it does what I want it to do, but there are some issues. There's some audio issues. The main reason I got it is because of the processing. Like, I just wanted better audio that also did video. I didn't want to have to use 2 solutions to do it. This is one solution that does it. I haven't tested it enough to figure out if it's going to work. But so far, it's like at 85% yes, it will work. I also like that it's this small.
It's small.
Will I use the sound pads and all this stuff? Maybe in the future. But right now, it's just really tiny. It gets out of the way. The audio, if I get it right, I know will sound great. Josh is helping me with that. But we got that.
And I do have to say, when we both had our Rodecaster Pro 2s, although they were malfunctioning, the audio processing is pretty spectacular in those pieces of kit because you can hit like SM7B and it just makes it sound amazing. Like, you literally don't even have to know anything about audio. But you guys probably know our feelings about Rode.
Yeah, that was the big thing for me. I have like a Rode pod mic. I'm not using it. I would love to use it. I love that I can just like select the thing and just make it work. So we'll see. I bought the big ass Godox no LED light. We talked about that last time though.
Yeah, we did.
Now I didn't buy this, but I gotta say thank you. I am completely rebuilding the studio, and I'm so sick of having like 5 different brands of lights, because I would love to put everything on one app, right? To control everything from one app. You know how great that is. Anyway, I reached out to Nanlite. I have a bunch of Nanlite products already, like all the lights back there, my big key light. And they hooked me up with everything I would need to completely redo the studio. So I didn't buy it, but I'm super grateful, and I just got to say thanks.
That's awesome of them. I've seen them do that with a lot of creators, so that's really cool. Did you get that stuff in yet, or still on the way?
It's already here, and I got to tell you, like, they sent me 8 of the XR tube lights.
Whoa.
The 4-foot. Yeah, they sent me 8. I asked for 4 to just replace those, and they sent me 8, and they crush those. So I am so pumped to just have a much better light, because like even when you dim these down, they're like almost too bright. The diffusion isn't great. You can kind of see the individual LEDs. Much better solution. I'm pumped. And then they sent me some stuff that's not even like out yet, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome, man. Congrats on that.
Yeah, thanks. And then I bought a really expensive pair of pants.
Okay. Is that relevant to our discussion here?
No, but if you want to check them out, go watch the new video that came out.
Okay. And then in addition to that, I know, Brandon, you're getting ready to rebuild your studio a little bit and do some stuff. So I know that was part of the plan with the lighting and some other stuff you're going to be installing. So that'll be really cool.
Thanks.
Cool. Now, you buy anything else?
Okay, camera-wise, no, I hope not. Dear God,
okay.
What did... Oh, well, I did. I actually bought the, like, Sigma. I bought the Sigma MC11 for the Leica, though. So I don't know if it's the MC11, MC21.
MC21, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I bought that, and it will not, like, it won't work. The autofocus when I throw on my Sigma 28 just doesn't work.
Huh. Can you
in
update
video.
the MC21?
No.
Okay, I don't know if you can, but just thinking about it.
So the autofocus works in photo, but when I switch it over to video, it just goes dead. So
okay.
Anyway,
interesting. Okay, was that with a Sigma lens or something else?
No, that was with the Sigma 28. I was gonna try to use the SL2S as like my live stream camera, because it's just a beautiful camera. It's got full size XLRs. Like, I just thought that would actually be a great solution. And it just didn't look right. Nothing.
Okay.
It didn't work the way I wanted it to.
I know a lot of times with the MC11 and MC21, they work the best with Sigma lenses versus using like a Canon EF lens or something like that. That's what I was asking. But, well, maybe you can use your FX30 for live streaming, so maybe we'll get into that later.
We're going to try it.
All right, so let's get into news and rumors.
Yeah.
So not that much, actually. I was trying to dig around and try to find some stuff. But first of all, the new Insta360 Ace Pro, I think is what it's called.
See ya, GoPro.
Why is that? Why is it just kicking GoPro out?
Dude, it does. I love GoPro. I mean, but I think GoPro's just gotten too comfortable. I think GoPro's like, yeah, we're the big brand, and they really haven't innovated. And this camera is a massive innovation. Like, they just came out with all of these cool features, and you're like, why hasn't anybody done that before? That's a no-brainer. And it just does everything. It crushes GoPro in low light.
So what were some of those features? I know that flip screen looked pretty cool. Was there anything else?
The flip screen is awesome. I'll tell you right now, if you want to see like the best video on it, my personal favorite was David Manning's. I think he did the best job of going over everything, with the exception of like the AI warp. Okay, so low light, it looks awesome. So it uses the same sensor as the DJI Action 4, the latest one. But because they put this AI processor in it, they can do a lot more than the DJI can with an 8-bit, the 8-bit profile that they have. But they use the AI to give you much better dynamic range, especially in low light. I would say the GoPro still beats it in high, bright conditions, but everything else it does, it's like, doesn't matter. It's got the magnetic mount, but it's not like just two magnets sticking together. It's like a physical grabs onto it. The magnets just help align it. That's something GoPro still hasn't done. God damn those freaking thumb screws. The flip up screen is awesome. It can do like face recognition. There's a litany of things that this camera can do that we haven't seen in other cameras. And like I said, I'd highly recommend checking out David's. Maddie actually did a pretty good job with the AI warp. That's another really cool feature where basically you can film, select parts that you want, and then use AI to give it a really crazy look. Like if you wanted like a sci-fi look while you're riding on your one wheel, but everything but the one wheel was normal, you could do it. It's pretty insane.
Cool. Well, yeah, it looks like some cool new tech, and it's funny because to me I'm like, oh, an action camera is an action camera, but now they're putting all the AI stuff in it and trying to innovate. So good to see that. Hopefully everyone else builds on that and just makes everything cooler, you know?
I think where it gets really interesting is just Insta's software is so good and so easy to use. And if there was like a creative shot you didn't know how to get, like it'll literally teach you how to do it. But the implications of what they're going to be doing in the future with their 360 cameras, I think that's where it gets really, really interesting.
Cool, man. All right. So the Sigma finally came out with their 70-200 f2.8, which has been people have been wanting forever. It's coming out in E and L mount, like they've been doing for all their mirrorless stuff. So it looks. I didn't really watch too much about it. I'm not really interested in buying that lens, but it's good to see them come out with that. Another good option. I heard some rumors
with
about
the value.
Yeah, I heard some rumors about new Fuji cameras coming out in early 2024. Nothing specific. I don't know. Did you hear anything about that?
No. I keep shaking my fist like, Fuji, just make this camera that I'm telling you to make.
You mean the medium format X100V?
I'm telling you, if they took their GFX50, it's the 50S, I think, sensor. I can't remember, but they're 50 megapixel one, the one that they put in the big like rangefinder style. If they took that and put it in an X100 style body and put like a fixed 40 millimeter lens on there, dude, that camera would crush. People would go nuts over it. But I'm assuming they're gonna put like the XT5 sensor in the new one.
Yeah, isn't that we're still waiting to see what, like the XE5, X106 or whatever?
Yeah, we're waiting for that batch of cameras.
So that would not be a surprise if that's what comes out. So Sirui come out with some new lenses. There's sniper lenses, which are autofocus APS-C lenses. And
1.2.
All 1.2, EX and Z mount, and 23, 33, and 56, kind of predictable for APS-C. They're coming in black, white, and silver, Brandon. So color options.
Yay! Yeah,
I know you love the white lenses.
Not these ones. They look like toilets.
Okay, so don't get the white ones unless you want toilets.
They look like they've been made out of the plastic toilety stuff.
Well, pretty affordable, man. I mean, they're
very affordable.
A Kickstarter price is $300 each, or $350 later, $850 for the set now, or $1,000 later. So it's cool to see all these options and having autofocus lenses, because I know a lot of the more inexpensive lenses coming out now are like cheap cinema lenses and stuff. So that's cool. And
just pumped that we got like a bunch of third parties trying to push, lens technology. I think it's awesome.
And not for Canon, but we'll get into that more later, of course. So Sirui came out with some new anamorphics, Brandon.
Yeah, so weird, they dropped this like carbon fiber, the world's smallest full frame anamorphic 1.6 stretch. I don't know how long ago, a year and a half ago. And then it was like they just forgot about it. And I've seen Sirui do this before, where they come out with a lens and then they're like, we'll get back to it, But anyway, we're lucky enough that they're finally kind of filling out this, what is it called? Is it the Jupiter lens line? The Saturn lens line. All of their stuff is named after planets. Anyway, they're finally filling out the rest of this line with a 50 and a 75. And I think it's just hitting Kickstarter. I think you'll see YouTube videos starting to pop up about it.
Cool. All right.
They are tiny though. They're like this big.
Are they full frame or APS-C?
They're full
35?
frame, and they're
Okay.
literally like the size of a tiny soda can.
I would be a big fan of that. I love the nanomorphs
Yeah.
just for the fact that they're so small. So
Yeah.
small lenses are cool. All right, so Canon's been pretty quiet with the rumor front. I heard they're working on quad pixel autofocus, whatever that is, and then I
Yeah.
guess that's twice as good as dual pixel autofocus.
I mean, the math checks out, but
Yeah, it's got to be twice as good, right?
I don't know. Yeah, I hope.
And then I haven't heard anything new about the R5 II and R1 rumors. It's been pretty quiet, but people are still saying it's coming in 2024, so we'll just wait and see.
Yep. We'll see.
I saw 2 Sony rumors about lenses. I don't know. They're early rumors from Sony Alpha Rumors. There was a 24 to 50 f2.8G lens, so that would probably be pretty small. And a super zoom, a 24 to 240 variable aperture with stabilization. So
Wow.
Canon makes that,
Okay.
right? The 24 to 240, don't they?
Do they? Well, I know they just did the 24 to 105, but I didn't
can't
know
remember.
they made a 24 to 240.
Maybe it's Sony. No, I can't remember. I don't know why I don't know.
Oh, well.
I take that back. I don't remember. I'm not into
No
those
sweat.
like ginormous, like that's just a crazy lens. I don't know what,
Yeah.
All right, so that's kind of all I had for news and rumors, Brandon. Let's get into the main topic. Let's talk about really what's spearing this conversation is the fact that you bought an FX30. And
Yeah.
I know you've bought and returned several Sony cameras. So
Dose.
so you got the FX3 and the ZVE1. Is
Yeah.
that correct? Okay.
Yeah.
And so what were the reasons? Do you want to first, maybe we should get into why you're looking for a Sony camera. I think that's probably a good place to start. So like, why are you looking for one, and what sort of camera or combination of things are you looking to replace, and what are you going to use this camera for? Because Brandon, you do a lot of different stuff, right? You do YouTube content, you do client work, you have 2 different types of channels. We do podcasts. What kind of work are you going to be using this for?
Okay, so there were a lot of questions there. Let's get into the first one, which is
lobbing you to get started here. Yeah.
Okay. So on the main channel, I like to vlog. So whether you like vlogging or not, it would be I use the R5C for all of that. And so the FX30 would try to replace the vlogging. Sometimes when I do client work, it's very spontaneous, and I need to be fast. And so, like, I take the Komodo X on a lot of these shoots where I need the best image quality possible. But when I know things are just being delivered to Instagram, the KX is pretty overkill. And it would be nice to have like ridiculously good autofocus for some of that. So there are going to be times where I want to see if the FX30 can replace the KX and the R5C as like a content cam for that job, like on Instagram, when I'm doing social media content, if that makes sense. The why is, it really is like the FX30 and those 2 lenses are substantially cheaper than this. They're substantially smaller than this. It's, how close can I get in image quality to this with that camera? And if I can get really close with its amazing autofocus, et cetera, it just kind of makes sense value-wise to get rid of this and just use the smaller, faster, better autofocus type of system. Did I answer all of your questions?
Yeah. This is going to be a discussion. So
Yeah.
I always find, Brandon, I know we talk a lot about cameras, obviously, why we started this podcast and our friendship and everything. And it's just like, you tend to like want these really high-end, sort of more cinema level cameras because you're always trying to get the maximum image quality. And in reality, you're using cameras that are more complicated than they probably need to be for the job that you're shooting in a lot of times. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, this is definitely a experiment in how much money have I wasted?
Well, all right. So let's start with vlogging. All right. So you've been using the R5C for vlogging. So in that situation, I don't think there's a lot of vloggers using R5Cs. Let me just say that.
Yeah, probably not.
Okay.
And I've been trying. Listen, don't get me wrong. What I'm saying, the reason I'm trying to switch is not really a knock on this. It's just, it's just not fitting my needs, like what I want, right? Like, this is a big ass camera, and I'm doing a lot of hiking Like when I vlog and I go out and do things like I'm out in the woods, like this just adds up. It can be very cumbersome. It's a lot of weight. And truth be told, like the autofocus isn't that great on this camera. It's been funky, even with that lens, you know, like a native RF lens. So wanting to vlog, like I would love to have something that's much smaller.
Yeah.
And the ZVE1 is that, and it's full frame. It's the FX3 basically, but I don't think it will handle up to the rigors of the environment that I'm going to put it through. Like just the other day, I was out in a torrential downpour, and this thing handled it like a champ. But again, it's just big, it's bulky, and the autofocus wasn't that great. Can I get the same type of build quality, weather resistance out of the FX30, the FX3? Can I get close with that on image quality? So that's part of the reason why I went with the FX30 rather than the ZVE1. The image quality is probably better on the ZVE1, but it's not going to handle like the weather like the FX30 and the FX3 will.
Yeah, and for you, I know that you said so many times with vlogging cameras, you don't really care about the overheating because you're doing short clips.
Yeah, I almost never shoot a clip that's like longer than a minute or two.
Okay. So I think I've vlogged with the R5C as well. And for me, one of the biggest issues is the lens options, frankly. So the 15 to 35 is unbelievable and it works. It looks so good on the R5C, but it's so big and heavy. And like
huge.
If you're hiking, which I know both of us like to do, and you're carrying like a small lightweight tripod, you put the R5C on there with that huge lens. I'm just like, this doesn't like look right here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I think the lensing is so important. Like I've got, with autofocus, I got a 15 to 35, or I got the 16 2.8. And I've been using the 16 2.8 a lot because it is so small. It's nice. But the autofocus in that lens is not that great. Like it really pulses around for whatever reason with me. From what I've seen, it's honestly because I wear a hat. Like anytime I take my hat off, it's like it locks onto me. It locks onto my eye. But once I put a hat on, it's and I live in a hat.
yeah.
So it just doesn't work for me.
The R5C autofocus is good in some situations and not good in other situations. Like for interviews, for slow-paced stuff, I think it works great. I think it works better than their mirrorless cameras. But for the quick-paced stuff, their mirrorless cameras are better for vlogging and that sort of stuff. So I totally get that. I also think about stabilization when you're vlogging because the 16 is a great option for vlogging, but it doesn't have stabilization. And then when you're using the R5C, it only has digital stab. So when you're talking about a camera like the FX30, even though the lenses aren't stabilized, you at least have IBIS in the body.
Yeah.
So that helps. All right, so not really a knock on the R5C in particular, but maybe the whole system and lensing and all that, and the auto. I guess the autofocus is a knock on the R5C.
Yeah, it really is. It's like I'm just trying to experiment to see how close I can get to an R5C. How like this is I'm doing a better job now than I have been at taking a really accurate look at what I really need. Now, I'm not getting rid of the Komodo X. I love that camera. I'm not getting rid of the Komodo because it's like the perfect B camera. I love that camera. It's really like, am I going to find better value in what I really need compared to this camera right here? And we'll talk about like, what other Canon cameras? But anyway.
Yeah, and so the values, I think, is a good place to start because, of course, when you are selling used gear and probably buying new gear, there's a loss. You're going to take a loss because you probably going to lose money on. The R5C has dropped in value since you bought it, obviously. So you have to really consider that. For me, it's like if I'm going to be changing, there's got to be a reason that I'm doing that besides value. Because for me, it's like a hassle to sell stuff and buy stuff. And then, for you, you're not used to Sony. You're not used to the menus, the colors, like all that stuff is going to be a learning curve for you. So there's going to be some time that you're going to have to invest in that to get fully up to speed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think grading is going to be the hardest part. And I say that because like, I don't think it's going to be that hard. I've already done it a couple times. Dude, the menu on Sony is pretty cake. I had to ask you, I was like, how do I bind the shutter button to record? That's it. Like everything else, because their new menu, super easy to set up.
Yeah,
so
people rip on Sony menus, but since they put that main menu, that 2-screen main menu, almost everything's in there. You might have to, when you first set up the camera, like go in and find like how to record with shutter or how to change the auto temp setting to high or a couple of little things in there. But otherwise, I find that their menu system is pretty awesome now for shooting, especially for shooting video.
Extremely simple.
Yeah. The cameras are really easy to work. So the thing that we're talking about right now, first of all, is value. And I think the FX30 in particular is a camera that has a lot of value. And especially now that's on sale, it's $200 off. It's selling for $1,600 right now. This is a camera that I've recommended to a lot of people, even though I don't personally own one, because if you're looking for a video camera that doesn't overheat, that does all the things you need it to do, the FX30 is kind of your best bet in that price range.
I asked a lot of people that have the FX3 and the FX30 that are creating both client work and content regularly with both of them. And I was like, how big of a hit is the dynamic range to the FX30 compared to the FX3? And across the board, everybody was like, it's not that much. You know, like low light's a little different, but like it's not that much. And I'm like, well, if that's the case, why don't I spend $2,200 and get the camera in 2 primes and see how it fares in the situations that I need it for against like this? And like, how much is this, Josh? Like right now, the body's
it's on
35.
It's on sale for 34, but it's probably gonna be like 38 for a little while.
And then you got like a $2,000 lens. So it's like, I'll lose a little bit of money, but I'm still gonna pocket a ton.
Yep. So let's talk about the FX3 and FX30 for a little bit, because I know that's a big discussion, especially when you're trying to get into the ecosystem of Sony for shooting video. And I own an FX3. I've shot on it, or the A7S III, a ton since they came out. And I did I got the FX30 when it came. I did a bunch of testing. Now, when you talk about dynamic range, I think if I didn't already own the FX3, I think I wouldn't necessarily think too much about dynamic range with the FX30. But once you have more dynamic range in the Sony ecosystem, it's really hard to go back. Yeah. It's really hard for me because I know how far I can push that camera. Can you make great videos with a lot of dynamic range in the FX30? Yes. Now, in terms of low light, it's really not that great. But then again, I don't shoot in low light very often, so that's nothing I really stress about. So that really wouldn't be a knock for me.
Same.
What about Super 30, or what about APS-C and full frame? Does that matter to you?
No, because, I mean...
You got lenses,
both
right?
of my Komodos are APS-Cs, and I have lenses that cover all of that stuff. I mean, most of my lenses are for that. Like, my only full-frame lenses are for the R5C.
Okay. So for me, the only thing that would keep me... There's a couple things for me personally wanting to use the FX30 over the FX3, and one of them is full frame, and I don't really care so much about full frame, but for certain things, like for real estate, it's really nice to have full frame.
Yeah.
Because you get less distortion, at the same focal length, or you know what I mean? Like you can use a tighter lens to get the same field of view and you get less distortion. So to me, that makes a big difference. The other thing, the difference between those two cameras is rolling shutter. So if rolling shutter is something you care about, the FX3 has a much quicker readout. Yeah. Again, for the stuff that you're shooting, maybe it doesn't make a difference. I don't know. But huge price difference, man, between those two cameras.
When I looked at the two, I looked at the FX3, the ZVE1, and the FX30. And I obviously wanted the FX3. It's full frame, a little more dynamic range, but then cost. I'm like, okay, it's $4,000 for that camera. ZVE1, all right, I can get the same image quality, but for like half the price. But then I ruled that out because I'm like, it's not gonna hold up to the environment that I'm gonna put it in frequently. Yeah. So that ruled it out. And then I was like, do I want the FX30? Do I want the APS-C? And talking to people and hearing that image quality is pretty darn close. It's not as good, but it's pretty darn close. Rolling shutter is definitely not that great. But I'm not doing this when I'm like vlogging or shooting content at a restaurant. So that didn't really matter. Advantages, FX3 or FX30 screen is more detailed and a little nicer than the FX3s and the ZVE ones for sure. For the stabilization is a little bit better. There were a few advantages, but then also value, like just the price. Yeah. So for me, I'm like, this really does kind of feel like out of the 3 cameras, this one suits my needs the best with the fewest compromises. Nice. The one thing I like about the FX30 over the FX3 is the fact that it has a 6K sensor. Mm-hmm. And so you get more detail and sharpness out of that camera than you get out of the FX3. And you know, like I've got two cameras that I use that are like dedicated for photo cameras, but part of the job of the R5C is a brilliant photo camera. So the FX30 having some extra megapixels, especially when I'm shooting thumbnails, it does go a long way. So
cool. Well, I think you just can't knock on the value proposition of the FX30. Like Sony did a great job for the video shooters out there, the content creators, all that kind of stuff. And I think it will be great for the kind of stuff you're doing. I think you'll really enjoy. Like there's plenty of times where I go out and I'm like, I want a small camera. I'm like, I look at my Canon gear, I'm like, I don't have anything like super small to take out with me. So that's a huge advantage.
I think the very first question you asked me, and I think this is really important, you was like, why? And that's it. It's like what Cam said a long time ago. It's like, I'm really hopeful for Canon, but I don't want to wait any longer. Like these are things that I really want right now, and Sony offers that right now. And so maybe down the road, Canon will have it. Kudos to them. Maybe I'll get it then. But these are things that I want right now. And so that's the primary reason that I'm experimenting here.
Okay. I want to talk more about Canon. We'll do that a little bit later. But let's talk about some other options. You mentioned ZVE1. You mentioned FX3. What about in the Canon ecosystem? Like to me, what would stand out would be like maybe the R6 Mark II.
And for me, it just, some of the things that I'm not getting in the top of the line R5C, I'm certainly not going to get in the R6 Mark II. I might with the autofocus, but like dynamic range,
no better.
Like, it's no better, and it's no smaller really, right? Like the body is a little smaller because it doesn't have the fan, but it's still the same body
and same lenses.
And the same lenses.
Right.
So when it comes to size and weight, like there's no advantage there. I'm just saving money, but still experiencing the same like gripes.
Yeah. And I'm sure you've thought about other brands too when you go through this process. Like, do you think about Lumix or Fuji or Nikon?
I thought about Lumix. Yeah. No, I really did. I thought about everything. The ZF, you know. But with Lumix, the autofocus isn't there. And we talk so much about like having the best image quality and like everything like that, but there is something to like for the stuff that I want to use this camera for, I just want fast and easy. And it's hard to beat Sony with fast and easy. And with a Lumix, it's not as easy because their autofocus just isn't up to par with the Sony.
Yeah.
They look awesome. They make, I mean, like the amount of value that Lumix gives you with all the cool video tools, that's hard to beat. But I don't want to fuss with it.
And you have less native lens options too.
Yeah.
Yeah. What about Fuji? What about like an XH2S, something like that?
I love Fuji. I will always have a place in my heart for Fuji. My wife still uses Fuji. The X100V is just a killer camera, but again, every one of their cameras has had autofocus like issues. It's just wonky. Like they just do sporadic things. The colors are amazing. I love the dials. I love using Fuji cameras, but again, it really came down to like fuss, and I just feel like I'm gonna fuss more with a Fuji. The only one I feel like you're not going to get as much fuss with is the XH2S, but then the value proposition, like I'm spending another $1,000 and I've got to buy more lenses that are, well, I guess with third parties you can get them, but again, value proposition, and it's a big camera. It's it's pretty big.
Yeah. And we're putting this in context for here before people get all bent out of shape here. This is for vlogging and quick pace social media content and stuff like that where autofocus is important. And this was the case when I reviewed like the S5 II and the XH2S, and people were like, you like it, but why don't you use it? I'm like, yeah, but like my FX3, which I already own, or some of my Canon cameras have better autofocus and are a little bit quicker to use for these situations. You know what I mean? So as we're talking about here, it's really for this situation. And I think people need to always think about the right tool for the right job. And for that reason is why I've been using my FX3 so much for especially client work, is because it kind of is the right tool for the right job. And I know we've talked endlessly about, can I use my Komodo for this situation? Can I use this and that? Because we're always trying to get the best image quality, but there's always a trade-off with speed and ease of use with, and also autofocus. Like if you miss if you don't have something in focus, I don't care how good the image quality is, like it doesn't work. You know what I mean? And so you have to keep that in mind too. And I do use the FX3 a lot. Is it my favorite image quality out of the cameras that I own? No. Like I have other cameras that I like their image quality better, but I wind up grabbing it a lot because it's very easy to use and it gets me the shot quickly and accurately. So I think that's what we're talking about here, is getting the right tool for the right job.
Absolutely.
All right, so those are the reasons why you're trying out the FX30 and seeing if it'll work for you. And I think you probably will be happy with it for those situations for sure. Why would you not want to make a switch like this? Because let's talk about that, because we already talked about like losing money and selling gear. That's an obvious one. For me, I think some of the trouble is living in multiple ecosystems, because I know for you, Brandon, you're living in Red and Leica now, and so for video and for photo, and so Canon
and
Canon, but it could be Canon or Sony. Doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah,
to some extent.
It's kind of a bummer because the Komodos are RF mount, and so the 15 to 35 works so damn well on the Komodo X, but it doesn't make sense to like switch to Sony, just get rid of the R5C body and not get rid of the lenses, because the like 51.2, I don't really like it on the KX. I'd rather use like a cinema lens because the autofocus doesn't work that great. I've used the 70-200 and it works pretty well, but not always. And so it just doesn't make sense to like just get rid of the body. I would have to get rid of everything, and that's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, it is. And that's what I was kind of worrying about, because living with Red, you're in the EF RF world. And so, do you sell your nice like RF-L lenses because they're fantastic optically, because you can't use them on your Sony camera? So this is like a hard decision that people considering this have to make,
Yeah, and I'm still not sure. I would probably say yes, because I will be able to buy third-party lenses from Sony that work great and are cheap, and be able to save myself a little money on that front. And the vast majority of the lenses that I use on the KX and the Komodo are cinema lenses anyway. So, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, to me personally, when I use my Komodo, it's a manual focus camera. Like I don't rely on the autofocus. So to me, RF lenses, like they're optically great, but at the same time, like I could use other lenses because I'm manually focusing anyways. You know what I mean? That's sort of how I approach that. But one thing I struggle with, I've lived in Canon and Sony ecosystems together for years now, is lenses. And not because I can't use one on the other like we're talking about here, but I have a preference between Canon and Sony lenses. I don't know if you do too, Brandon, but I personally really love the RF-L lenses. Like optically, I like them better than the Sony GMs.
They're super nice.
Yeah.
And I love that they have, image stabilization built into them. Most of them.
Yep. Yeah.
But it's a fantastic lens. Like obviously it's big, it's heavy, they're super expensive, but my God, they look great.
Yeah, and so this is a personal preference thing. I know there's people that are going to like the Sony lenses over the Canon lenses because maybe they're a little bit sharper in the corners, or maybe they're more technically perfect. But I just like the way that the Canon lenses render images, skin tones, stuff like that. And that's just a personal preference. And I wish you could like use a Canon lens on a Sony body, but you can't. You can't take an RF lens and put it on a Sony body. So that would be something that's something I've personally been struggling with lately. It's like I love my FX3, but I like the Canon lenses better. That sort of thing.
The one thing for me with like the Canon and Sony, like a disadvantage of going to Sony is like, dude, the screens on Canon are way better, and so are the EVFs for the most part. Like it's just a better experience than Sony with those things.
So another thing with that is ergos, Brandon, because I know that like the way a camera looks and feels. I know you've voiced your opinion about the FX3 and of course the FX30. You like the way it looks, but in terms of ergos and how the camera makes you feel when you use it and stuff, maybe you haven't put enough time in yet to make a comment on that.
I actually really like it so far.
Okay.
The dial feels good. These buttons feel good. They're very like responsive. They're not mushy. So. And yeah, I think the way it looks is awesome. I love this industrial look. I love the fact that there are doors and not effing flaps.
Doors are good, yes.
Good shit. But there are plenty of other Sony cameras that all look exactly the same. They're all like clones of each other, and they're just kind of boring and plasticky. And I think Canon has better ergos than Sony on the vast majority of their products.
Yeah.
Cameras.
Yeah. And also have a full-size HDMI port, just saying.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, on this little camera, I've got one, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And so just not to try to backtrack too much, but we're talking about lenses. I think a big selling point, of course, with Sony is third-party lenses. You just bought 2 Sigma lenses, of course, for your FX30.
$700.
Yeah, that Sigma trio is pretty hard to beat. But you also have a lot of other options from Tamron and other companies out there, and
Yeah.
they're kind of making Sony be more competitive in a lot of ways too, which is great.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, like, obviously it will get better for Canon. It will. Like, it's inevitable. We're gonna get more options, but we don't have them now. Like right now, you either have cinema lenses, like manual focus type of things. If you want autofocus, you got to go with Canon, and the tiers, like the difference between the tiers is massive, right? The difference between 1.8s and the Ls, it's pretty substantial.
Yeah, and the size. I think that's a big thing for me personally.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Not just, and the quality. I thought you were talking about the quality, but yeah, the size of the lenses and the quality of the lenses and all that stuff is a huge difference. So I feel like you mentioned Cam talking about this earlier in that if you're a Canon user or owner, which both of us are, I feel like we're always waiting for Canon to make a move. I feel like it's just like, are you going to like give the video creators something soon, or are we just going to sit here and wait with this stuff that you have now?
We've talked so many times about, like, I wish Canon would just make a FX3. Like, where's the Canon FX3? And I don't think we're gonna see it. I have faith that Canon's gonna make something amazing down the line, but what I see from Sony is they're constantly trying to push the technology boundaries in their cameras. And there are some cons with that, right? You're getting cameras that are brand new that don't get the same software updates that the new cameras do. Like they should. Like we made a joke about the A1 finally getting focus breathing, right? Like that's kind of ridiculous. But Sony's like kind of pushing the envelope of like, let's bring new features and we'll push out new cameras. And Canon's not quite doing that. We know that Canon takes a different approach, but for somebody that wants something now, like it's just not going to happen from that.
Yeah, and they are constantly pushing the technology. They're also making the sensors for almost everybody, so they're constantly coming out new tech, like we just saw with the global shutter and the A9 III.
Yeah.
With everybody seemingly switching to Sony, or at least a lot of people that you see online, is there kind of like a FOMO element? Maybe not for you, but do you think that's a big part of it as well? Is sort of like, well, all my favorite creators are shooting on Sony, like I should at least try it. You know what I mean? Or my friends are shooting with Sony.
I'm not going to say that there isn't, but I would say what we see on YouTube is such a small percentage of the actual population that's using cameras, for whatever. So maybe amongst YouTubers and the people that follow YouTubers, maybe there is. Yeah. But, we really only hear from like the negative people. Like the negative people are the loudest for sure. But I don't know. I didn't look at like a group of YouTubers and go, oh man, I really like the way their stuff looks and they shoot on Sony. I should get a Sony so I can be like one of the cool kids. It was like, no, it's just like this. These are the things I want, and Canon doesn't have them, and I can't really get them from the other brands and the package that I want. So Sony it is.
Yeah, and Sony, like most people know, they do interact a lot with content creators and influencers and all the people that are out there marketing their products and sort of asking them for feedback and how they make their cameras better. And looking at the current cameras that are out there, I think Sony is the closest to what we're looking for in terms of features and usability. And I think specifically with the FX30 and the FX3 as being a compact, very reliable, easy to use video camera, and the fact that you can get either as an option or coming as default with the FX3 and optional with the FX30s, you can get that XLR top handle, which bolts into the top of the camera, and you have XLR. You don't have to buy the Tascam unit, which isn't even a Canon accessory, and it has reliability issues I've heard from a lot of people. That makes a huge difference, especially if you're a solo videographer and you got to do an interview. Boom, put
Yeah.
the handle on, you have XLR, you don't have to worry about it. It's like so compact and easy to set up. So there's a lot of those sorts of things that I find super valuable in cameras like the FX30 and the FX3.
Agreed.
All right, so as you try to wrap this up, Brandon, I think the big takeaway here is if you are not shooting on Sony and you've been intrigued, I think it's worth a look. I think it's worth trying. If it's maybe buying something that you could potentially return or, maybe
Rent.
or borrow from a friend, because chances are you have a friend that shoots with Sony. That's the reality. But I think it's definitely, there's a lot of value, especially when the FX30. I think they're going to rock those cameras for a while because they're doing the job for a lot of people. And you also always have to think about the right tool for the right job. If you're just making social media content in certain situations, like, you don't need to shoot on a Komodo X, you know what I mean? Although it is fun and overkill is fine in some situations. But I'm really happy to see where this goes for you, Brandon. And, I use my FX3 a lot, so I'm curious to see the content you make and how you feel after using it for a while.
Yeah, it really was kind of like the linchpin to this whole idea was me shooting a video for this restaurant on the KX, and I watched it and I'm like, could I have done this with like a smaller, cheaper camera? And then it was like, yeah, you definitely could have. And it's like, then why am I doing, in this situation, why am I like making my job harder? Let's see if I can find something that's super cheap, looks great, and makes my life easier. And that's what I'm hoping this camera will be. So
Okay.
I guess I'll check back in a few weeks and I'll tell you how it's going.
Well, I like to hear this, Brandon, because I've had this discussion with you several times, and I think we're both pulling each other in opposite directions sometimes, which is good, because I'm like, why are you shooting on a Komodo? And you're like, why aren't you shooting it on a Komodo?
Yeah.
And so we kind of go back and forth with this, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Well, anyways, cool to hear your thoughts about it, Brandon. I hope it works out for you. I can't wait to see the content and stuff that you make with it. And
thanks, buddy.
It's cool to talk through this because I think a lot of people are struggling with this sort of decision and process, and it's not super easy. But the other thing I just want to mention is that if you are shooting with other people, it's cool to be in the same ecosystem as well, because if you're collaborating, so for me personally, like, if I shoot with one of my buddies who shoots on Canon, it's nice that I have Canon gear to shoot with. But if you're shooting with people with Sony, of course, like, trading footage and stuff will match, or if you have to B-cam shoot for somebody or something like that, that'd be helpful too.
For sure.
Another thing to consider. All right, Brandon, anything else you want to add to the conversation before we get out of here?
No, that's it. I'm just going to wait for the comments to see what people think about me moving to Sony and how I'm a Sony shill now. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, well, make sure you let everyone know. Everyone watch this. Make sure you let us know down in the comments below. We appreciate you guys come by like usual, and we'll see you real soon.
Peace.